Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So the day of this recording is April 1st, meaning that the OCG Forbidden Limited list has already taken into effect. And I kind of want to talk about a few changes that might propagate in the OCG with their current ban list moving forward. Depending on if we ever get a Forbidden Limited list before the next main booster set, or like the next major event, which is going to be around the next month, we might see similarities to what is happening in the OCG, and we might end up in a format very similar to the one that they'll currently have. But without further ado, let's begin. So, shouts to Roller the King, shouts to Akira, amazing job. They made a post literally today, and this is pretty much the last major tournament that was held with the previous ban list. And from what we see right here, Snake Eye, and Tenpai Dragons and Snake Eye Fire King are like three of the better decks that we already know that are performing well in the format. We have a few other outliers here, like Rescue Ace, Infernoid, Vanquish Soul. We see multiple Yubel tops. So Yubel, with the new support, is actually doing something. We also see Drytron, and we also see Centurion. No bias, best deck. So I kind of want to talk about a few of the decks here. For example, this is not the first time Rescue Ace has been shown. There was another tournament the week prior, which was a 3v3 event as well. And it had multiple Rescue Ace tops, not just one. This is like the third Rescue Ace top that we see here, with the prior list. And that's something important to note because Rescue Ace has not been doing so well neither in the OCG or the TCG as of late. In the OCG, it kind of makes a lot more sense that this doesn't happen because Emergency is limited and Airlifter is at 2, while in the TCG, we have 3 Emergency still, but Airlifter is at 1. That being said, this deck has been seeing multiple tops in the past week. And when we talk about the changes to the OCG and the trends that people are leaning towards the new Forbidden Limited list, you'll understand a little bit more as we go along. We already saw the Yubel top, and this is already with the new support with the Spirit of Yubel. So I already know that Yubel is going to be like a really top meta contender. I think this deck, it has everything going for it. As you can see here, this is pretty much a pure Yubel build. If you play a pure, that means you can play Dimension Shifter, you can play Dogmatica Engine, you can play like a lot of other stuff that just work well with the archetype, and you don't have to sacrifice a lot of resources. If you decide to play like a hybrid with like other fiend monsters, you can like pretty much play like a super heavy combo deck. I think the reason a lot of people are leaning more towards pure Yubel is because of the existence of Maxx-C. This deck does super well against Maxx-C. Like Maxx-C doesn't really like hamper this deck at all. And as I mentioned previously, even though this build does not run it, Dimension Shifter is another card that you can play in this deck. This deck doesn't lose to a lot of hand traps. This deck has a lot of resiliency. The Yubel boss monster is like really, really strong. So there's really no surprise why Yubel is actually doing well. We see here Drytron. This is like the grass Drytron build. The 60 cards. The reason I kind of want to talk about Drytron is because we already are confirmed to have support in Infinite Forbidden, and even though it changes the structure of Drytron by a fair amount, it is still important to note because Drytron is one of those decks that can actually out-resource the Snake Eye Fire King deck under the right hands and the right tools. Like, I've already seen it in action. I already seen like the deck actually perform well breaking through boards. And the new support, even though it changes the way the deck will probably be played, it still makes the deck insanely powerful. So I say, if you don't know what Drytrons do by now, you should really look into them, because in the future you will see this deck somehow, some way. They have Ava, which is sort of a big deal, but at the same time they have Herald of Orange Light limited, while we have 3 Herald of Orange Light. And I already seen other Drytron builds like being popped off. Like just the other day, I saw a voiceless voice Drytron deck that is actually not doing that bad, at least on online events. So that's something to keep under your hat. So now let's go back and talk about Rescue Ace for a second. But before we do that, I kind of want to give a shout out to Raito YGO. For those who don't know, this is a multiple championship winner in the OCG. He does a lot of metagame reports involving the OCG. And one thing that they talked about is the format after the new Forbidden Limited list. As you can see right here, we have a chart. This is pretty much like with a few tournaments in mind. They pretty much did practice tournaments in the past week or so, like testing on the new format, and this is like their first iteration of how the format is looking like. As you can see in the top tier, you see Voiceless Voice and you see Rescue Ace. So one thing to note is one big barometer for the OCG, at least the way they're doing their analysis, is whenever a new format starts and they want to test out the waters, most people lean towards one particular thing, and that is if your deck can play under Maxx-C. If your deck can play under Maxx-C, you should highly consider that deck like in your radar, because it's one of the better decks that will perform against like the established metagame. In the format before this new ban list, we already knew that we were in a heavy hand trap format, meaning that not only Maxx-C was pretty much on every people's like main or side deck. You see a lot of other hand traps as well. And Voiceless Voice and Rescue Ace are two like strategies that kind of do fairly well against that. Rescue Ace not as much. However, the one thing to take away from Rescue Ace, and this is the reason I kind of want to talk about this, is if you notice the Rescue Ace deck, like multiple of them, you don't see Snake Eye Ash, you don't see a Snake Eye Oak, you don't see Flamberge, you don't see the Fire King engine, you don't see like a few other things. They do play Promethean Fire Princess, a few of them. Others play like the Zealantis, but if we're looking at this list, particular one, this doesn't play Zealantis, this doesn't play the Phoenix. So I'm inclined to believe that if we actually do get like meta game ban list here in the TCG, where they hit like really strong cards, like let's say for example we lose Zealantis, we lose access to the Phoenix OTK, we lose access to like Snake Eye Ash, because that's one card that a lot of TCG players are talking about. We lose access to Flamberge Dragon. I think what will happen most likely is a lot of people are just going to lean back towards Rescue Ace, and just play it as a hybrid. Uh, if they don't hit Bonfire and they don't hit Poplar, this is just an engine that you just play in the Snake Eye Fire King deck. I mean, Rescue Ace deck, and this is no new like goo. We've already saw this happen in YCS Las Vegas as well. So I think it's very safe to believe that this would be like the next engine for fire decks moving forward. We see here that Fire King Snake Eyes is still in the top spots. We see Runic Stun is still around. We also see Yubel. The reason for Yubel's uprising is not just because of Spirit of Yubel. The other reason why Yubel is so popular in the OCG is because Yubel has an amazing Tenpai Dragon matchup. Like, the Tenpai Dragon deck cannot beat Yubel. Like, just having reflect damage happening on all your monsters cannot be destroyed by your card effects. The Nightmare Pain forces them to attack you. You have the Spirit of Yubel that can insulate like effects that they try to do. It's really hard for them to like just break the board. This deck, it does not really lose to like a lot of hand traps. This deck can play Dimension Shifter, like I mentioned beforehand. So if or when we get the new Jubel support, you will see this deck pop off a lot more than usual. Like, mark my words. You see pure Snake Eye, a B tier. The main reason for that is the limitation of Wanted. With Wanted being limited, Diabell Star is a little bit more warranted at multiple copies in the Snake Eye deck. So pure Snake Eye is pretty much one of the like losers of the ban list. Just to say, Tenpai Dragons are losing popularity. The reason for that is not only Yubel being a strong matchup for them, but also Runic Stun and Rescue Ace. Another reason why Rescue Ace is also really good this next format is because the Tenpai Dragon matchup is really strong for them. Like, Tenpai Dragons, a lot of their builds are playing like a lot of hand traps in the main deck, and they're not playing enough spell and trap removal in the main deck. Some of them are, but not all of them. And the thing about Tenpai Dragons is if you cannot get rid of your opponent's back row, you're not going to win because all you're doing is just trading advantage against them. And you see how this build has Cosmic Cyclone, and you see how this build has Feather and Storm in the main deck. Like, those are only 2 to 3 cards. Like, you compare that to the number of hand traps that you're playing, a trap concentrated strategy or a back row strategy is just going to like take advantage of the situation, and that's where Rescue Ace comes in. Like, Turbulence set 4 is already really strong against Tenpai Dragons. You see the Fiend Link strategy. This is basically a Jubel mixture of other hybrids. I think after Infinite Forbidden, when Fiendsmith arrives in the OCG, we might see this hybrid pop off a lot more. But at the current time in this established metagame, pure Jubel is just stronger because of how great the matchups are aligned with it. We see Melodious also in B tier. I think Melodious is a really, really, really strong deck. Stay tuned this week. I will make a video on that. But yeah, I think Melodious is one of the scarier decks that we're going to have in the TCG. This is a really strong deck in the OCG. The reason Melodious is not as popular in the OCG as you would probably see in the TCG is because Maxx-C. If Maxx-C was not in the format, I can tell you right now, Melodious probably would have been either in A or S tier. The deck is actually that strong. Chimera is up there. I think the new illusion cards that come out in Legacy of Destruction really, really help the Chimera deck. I think the Diabellis and the new Apprentice Magician are really, really strong cards. I will make a video on that in the future as well. So this is a prelude of stuff that you should be looking forward to when it comes to Legacy of Destruction. We see Fire King. I think this will go up in the higher tiers as more weeks progress. Venus of an Emancipator, we saw this in the Japan event like last week. This topped alongside the Rescue Aces decks that you already saw. Flow Under Ace is just a natural shifter deck. There's not much to say there. And the other ones are pretty much straightforward. I will talk about Ritual Beast in the future because that's another deck you should actually keep under your hat. And where that deck is confirmed to arrive with new support on June. But yeah, this is pretty much it from me. I kind of just wanted to talk about the OCG and talk about like the first draft of changes that is happening over there. I think if you are a fire player and you still want to play with your Sinful Spoils engine, you should really invest in Rescue Ace, because I have a very strong hunch that in the future, the fire deck, or at least Snake Eye as a concept, might get hit to a point where people want to gravitate away from it. And if they don't hit Poplar and they don't hit Bonfire and they don't hit original Sinful Spoils, we might be looking at the next possible iteration for fire decks. But that's it from me. I hope you found this video informative and you're liking your understanding. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep dueling.